talking a lot in the last 2 days of the CentreCourt MBA Festival of a journey, a very personal journey, but also a journey of professional opportunity. So in the last hour, we had a great session talking to the senior admissions from 4 top schools, and it seems natural to now roll into careers and outcomes. And this is the really memorable part. I have this theory that you might remember your finance or your strategy professor or cower from that accounting exam that you had to do at the end of the first term, but every student remembers the positive interaction that they had with career services and the mirror that they held up to them, the self-reflection as you think about your next steps and what you really want to achieve, that sense of purpose. So it's lovely to welcome Brittany Tyree. Brittany is the Director of Full-Time MBA Career Education and Coaching at UT Austin's McCombs School. We have Rebecca Cook with beautiful tulips, which she tells me are timed to come out just before graduation at the Kelley School at Indiana. Kelley Noble is joining us. Kelley is the Director of Career Coaching and Career Leadership for MBAs and alum at Kenan-Flagler at UNC. And then in that hot seat in the studio at Goizueta, we have Maureen Mannion-Leon, who's the Associate Dean and Executive Director of the Graduate Career Management Center at Goizueta. Thank you, all 4 of you. I'm going to jump right in with a comment that you made before we went live, Maureen. You described this summer and perhaps as one of the best ever for the class of 2022. What was driving the demand, the opportunities, you know, the sort of salaries that were being negotiated? What was behind that?
Well, I think the jobs were, the market in general was hot, as we've seen. I'm sure all of us have seen that it's been such a hot job market. And our students are in the MBA program are extraordinarily prepared for those jobs. And so they were really in hot demand. We had students that had multiple interviews with multiple firms, even across different functions this year. And they were really excited about the offers, salary numbers. I can share because we are one of the first graduation dates. We have an early graduation date. So we finished our salary calculations for the class of 2022, but they were up by 12 to 15%, depending if you look at mean and median. So it was a really strong salary year. Students had exciting offers, strong offers. So it was just a hot market. What can I say?
Well, that class of 2022, Kelley, that Maureen is describing, were the individuals that went through that application process in the fall of 2019, and in particular the winter and the spring of 2020, as the world was turned upside down. So it was a leap of faith to say, you know, I'm going to head to business school as planned. But the rewards, you're similarly seeing, you know, a great market for the graduates this year.
Oh,
yes,
for me?
I mean,
oh, sorry.
For Kelley.
Okay.
I'm assuming Kelley Noble and not Kelley, Indiana, but always causes confusion on my end mostly. But yeah, I would say that these students they took a really big leap of faith at all of our schools, I think, and it's just in the MBA market generally. And we were really proud to be able to work closely with them to help them achieve their goals and help them figure out how to navigate in this very different, very dynamic market. And I think that some of the things that make a top level MBA education so worth it that we all offer certainly played into that and helped those students feel prepared with a comprehensive, rigorous education. And the other pieces of it, I will pat all of us on the back here and say a lot of it came down to our offices and our teams being nimble and figuring out how to support students and saying, we've also never seen this. Let's go to the trends. Let's turn to each other and benchmark and figure out how we can support you. So that was really, we had the similar type of results that Maureen is referencing. And I think that's what we attribute it to. Being nimble, being open, being prepared, and being in a place where we really value that innovation and we bake it into what we do with our students.
And I applaud all of you, because that sense of dedication. You know every student's first names, you know their backgrounds, and then continue to follow them 5-10 years after, as they keep updating LinkedIn profiles with new opportunities and promotions. Rebecca, I mean, it really is highly personal. Tell us, what's involved in the careers curriculum in terms of, your team of coaches and experts, the one-on-one mentoring that takes place, just to give the viewers a sense of that commitment.
Sure. At Kelley, we have something called Me Inc. that the students start with actually in like April, before they even start coming to the program, which really starts end of August. And so there's a lot of pre-work, about 30 or 40 hours of pre-work that students do, really delving into themselves, what their backgrounds are, what do they want to be, why, what are their skills, interests, and values. And then they come to campus and we put them through 2 weeks of the actual Me Inc. programming, where they're divided into small groups of 15 or so students with a facilitator, usually from my office. And really focusing and delving into that and getting to share with their classmates and telling their stories and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. How does it resonate? Am I really telling a story that I think makes sense, or that is coming across making sense? So we spend a lot of time there with those students, getting to know them really well. And then when they move into the program itself, they have dedicated career coaches depending on their area of focus. And so it is a lot of personal touch. We do get to know them very well. I mean, just 2 hours ago, I was talking to an alum from 10 years ago, which, first of all, we were looking like, wow, it was 10 years ago, but really just helping him through as he makes a transition to a startup. And he's a little nervous about that, but big corporate to startup. But it's again, those relationships that I think are so, so important. And we all have those with our students.
Right. Brittany, you're director of coaching, career coaching for McCombs. What attracted you to this role, and what do you really, really enjoy in the work that you do?
Thanks, Matt. So I have actually transitioned into a new role. I'm now serving as the managing director of career education for full-time programs, including full-time, BBA, MPA, and MS. But I was formerly the director of career education and coaching. And what drew me to this space is really the work that we do, helping our students gain clarity around their next steps. And particularly at the University of Texas, our MBAs that are coming in, they are so talented. They're so curious. They're great problem solvers, that it's just truly a pleasure to work with them and support them as they navigate their next steps.
Presumably, sometimes you have to play, I don't know, tough cop. Maybe they have a sort of set idea, and you're encouraging them to explore other opportunities. Do you ever have those more difficult conversations?
Yes, always. One of the things that our admissions team does a phenomenal job at each year is bringing in MBAs who have diverse experiences. And because their experiences are so vast, they're coming in different places of their career. So we have folks coming in who we would classify as explorers, meaning they want to learn about different career paths. We have folks coming in as career enhancers. They're looking to level up in their career. But also we have folks coming in who want to pivot into a new space. And so there's a lot of conversations that happen along the way to ensure that there's clarity around the ownership our MBAs will have to take to make their career paths a reality for themselves. And specifically here at McCombs, we do a great job in helping our students build that strong foundation through our required BA 181 strategic career planning course that all of them take in their first year.
Right. Now, Melissa, your colleague Maureen, was sitting there with a big smile. She said, today is our first round deadline. So I guess tomorrow will be a much busier day as she and the rest of the team start reading. And applicants perhaps will have talked about post-MBA, the plans that they have, maybe even job titles that they have in mind. So how do you then structure the sort of exploration that Brittany is describing, tools that you use, assessments, to help them to identify career opportunities and where they'll really get that sense of fulfillment?
Well, we have a couple different tools that we use with our incoming students. And I'm sure many folks on this call also use Career Leader. So it's a basic tool that will help students look at different careers and see what skills they have and what career that could lead them into. But typically students come in and they want to do some exploring. So we also have a course called Design Your Life, and I'm sure there's probably quite a few schools that use this also. And it's a course where they really explore what's important to them, what are their values, how do they find an organization that fits their lifestyle and values, and how to look for a fit that not only works for them professionally, but personally too, when it comes to their next career step. So that's something that our students have really enjoyed. It's optional. We don't require students to take it because many students do come in and they have a bullseye and they know exactly where they want to be or the role that they want to interview for. But we do offer the Designing Your Life curriculum for students that want to do a bit more exploring and understand how to take that next step with understanding both their values as well as their professional goals.
Right. I feel that that's a course that I should sign up for. It's a great title, Designing Your Life. If Kelley Noble, if someone's talking about perhaps a particular job title, there's often a lot of focus on the first role coming out of business school, understandably, with the time and the investment that they've just made. But I'm sure with your team, you're also constantly encouraging them to think not just about that position, but as a stepping stone to the next 5, 10, 15 years. So how does that work to help them also think about the bigger picture?
Yeah, I would say I love that question because a lot of times our students, we see this always, it's so natural to think first destination. They're not necessarily thinking 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road. And they might have some idea of what that looks like. And our coaches are really adept at helping them see that longer view. And sometimes it's not always as clear as, hey, what company, what job title, what level. It's what impact do you want to have? It's where do you want to be and how do you want to feel at work and what do you want that to look like? So some of it is using a lot of those same DYL principles that Maureen mentioned. And some of it is just engaging students in conversation, exposing them to the opportunities that exist down the line by connecting them with alumni, by connecting them with employer partners, other subject matter experts through our centers that are usually topical or industry related, so that they can really see what does this career look like long term, and how does this path that I'm on right now sort of fit into that strategy. We really take the view that we are strategy partners, right? They become the expert in the space that they want to be and in their own lives, but we're really here to help them design and select strategies that will help get them there. So exposing them to what that could look like, helping them dig and think about the impact they want to have is really a critical and core piece of the work we're doing with coaching.
Right. Rebecca, Brittany had described earlier, and this is true of all 4 of your schools, but these really smart, curious, enthusiastic individuals that are joining your schools. When you then think about the skill sets that recruiters are telling you, these are some of the skill sets that are really important to us, perhaps even how that has changed over the last 2.5 years of a global health crisis and remote working, everything else that has implied. What do you see as skill sets that really respond to that evolving global business landscape?
Sure. I think communication is key because I think we were all used to conversing with each other, or we used to be in person. And then, now we all had to do it virtually. How does that work? How can we become comfortable with that? And everyone, I think, is relatively comfortable with it now, but it's really helping students understand that they need to have those conversation abilities, but also then how to create teams and build teams and camaraderie virtually and in person. Because I found myself yesterday on a call and I said, oh, you can just go have lunch with someone. And they're like, well, that someone lives in Minnesota and I'm in Atlanta. So I'm like, oh yeah, I just didn't think about it. So it's really developing that more global mindset of work environments. Things that we can do today. It can be hybrid, it can be fully remote, either way. Also just the willingness to just jump in and do whatever. we're all trained to do something. We have our majors, we have our skill sets, but it's also coming into a job where I think every company today needs people. They need people in lots of different areas. There's lots of the quiet quitting continues to happen. So it's more of developing those skill sets where they can just come in and make an impact pretty quickly because of what they've learned in the MBA program. I mean, any of our MBA programs, we're all training them very similarly, but they can all jump in and really contribute right away.
Got it. And whether they're going through balance sheets or analytical skills, Brittany, there are undoubtedly great hard skills that McCombs students developing. But Rebecca emphasized communications, and that puts it more on the sort of the soft skills side, certainly of leadership. So how do you and your team help to contribute to developing those soft skills when it then comes to networking, interviewing in an environment that has changed dramatically in the last 3 years?
So within the BA 181 strategic career planning course that our students take in their first year, what makes that course so unique is that it is aligned to our career management framework, which places emphasis on the student really learning more about the market and themselves, what skills they're bringing to the table, but then also using this information to really drive their value prop, to drive how they go about tailoring their career materials, but also showing up in the interview process. And so a part of that course, we place heavy emphasis, particularly in the job assessment area, of encouraging our students to really lean into career conversations with our alumni to get a little bit more understanding around what does the day and the life look like within that respective industry and or functional area, but then also what are the highlights? And does that align with what each of our MBAs are bringing to the table? This is really powerful because it creates an opportunity for our students to begin asking themselves questions around, can they see themselves in a particular role and at a particular company? So the networking skills there's heavy emphasis on that. In addition, we work very closely with another unit within the McCombs School of Business, and that is our McCombs Plus team. They oversee a lot of our experiential learning. And they have a team of leadership coaches that literally place emphasis on helping our MBAs grow their leadership skills, grow their social emotional intelligence, grow their communication skill sets. And all of this is then aiding them when they go through the interview process. So we collaborate quite a bit with our different stakeholders to support our students.
You talk about conversations with alumni, and Maureen, this must be such a key part of a wider community, not just the class of 24 or 25, but years and years of alumni, incredibly loyal. Tell us a little bit about that connection with alumni and how they're then also providing mentoring, insight, support, job offerings at their company. What does that mean to the MBA student as they're going through the 2 years at Goizueta?
Yeah, we really encourage our students to reach out to our alumni. Probably we're the smallest school on this call, I'm thinking. And so we think that gives us a competitive advantage. Our alumni are very responsive because they don't have 10 students reaching out to them. They have 2 or 3. And so our students are able to really form a connection with our alums and ask some of the questions that Brittany was talking about. Those questions about what is a day in the life? What are you doing on an everyday basis? What do you like about your job? What don't you like about your job? So they can get a lot of really great insight into the types of careers they're going through. Our alums are always open to doing mock interviews. We invite them to meet with our students to prep them for large interviews, important interviews for students, and they're really part of the process. It's so great connecting with alumni because they're open to meeting with students because they know what it's like going through the program and how many balls you have to balance and all the different demands on your time. So they're really open to meeting with our students and sort of helping them through the MBA process. And that really builds their network. And so when students are able to reach out to alums and set up things like treks, which we encourage our students to do, they're building a connection that could also help in the future with a job opportunity too, because those alumni remember the students that are reaching out to them. And another point, as a smaller school, we really depend on them too, because there's a lot of companies that don't necessarily come here to recruit. So our alums really pull for our students and get them opportunities that they might not otherwise have. So we really look to them for a lot of support and guidance in their career journey.
Right. But that idea of giving students a taste of life as a consultant, as a banker, working in big tech, healthcare, any space. Kelley, I'm sure at Kenan-Flagler, the summer internship also plays an important role to give someone a taste for an industry. So when does the planning for that start? And the different options that will then hopefully also translate to job offers after the internship?
Well, never soon enough is my answer. And I think my colleagues would agree with me. The market has really shifted its preference up earlier and earlier, and we're seeing a lot more employers moving earlier and earlier. And so where we traditionally would be doing these, we're in the middle of company presentations and coffee chats right now. Students are about to go on their treks to different cities. We already have a lot of students who have been in front of employers through things like Forte or Consortium or MLT. Students who've had opportunities to network with employers because employers are hosting big events and they're saying, hey, come to Chicago for 3 days in the middle of August and learn what it's like to work at our firm. So we're learning that shift is happening earlier and earlier. And I think we're all seeing that and going, wait, how do we engage with these students? So really the plan for us is getting them through the know yourself and know the market phases of our career development model, and really ensuring that students understand who they are, what they value, what those non-negotiables are, so that when they go out and look at options, and always it's multiple options, it's never just one, how can they create and structure a plan that's going to support those goals? We find that our students, especially in concert with our clubs, our career clubs, are really eager to get out there and to get in front of employers. And, we are going to start doing our first set of resume drops any day now. So it's all happening very quickly and earlier and earlier. And the more that we can do to help students feel equipped with their rubric, their checklist for what's right for them, the better. We're also seeing students coming back now, right, with offers. And a lot of times they're negotiating those, or they're saying, hey, I don't know if I really loved that. I'm going to go back and say, it's nothing to do with the company, but that's not the experience I thought I was going to have. Or, wow, it turns out that I really am passionate about something different. And I want to have a different kind of impact. So we're seeing students right now, our second years, reevaluating. The same way I think we're all doing in the market writ large, right? A lot of reevaluation and a lot of reprioritizing of what matters in making these career decisions. So
they come back and they tell you they want to be an opera singer. They've
yes.
forsaken the life of a consultant, too much time on the road.
It's always an interesting coaching conversation. I want to join this one. So
as your team are preparing that resume drop, presumably Rebecca, a resume book, and Kelley students, recruiters that come back and say, we took people through internships and we're hiring your graduates last year. What is it that they see in Kelley students? Are there any sort of common values, traits, characteristics that they really appreciate?
Sure. I think I touched on it a little bit before, but it's really the willingness to just roll up your sleeves and do whatever. It's, I think our students tend to come out relatively humble. I mean, I think they are just generally, but they're smart and they're good. So it's really just the willingness to go in and say, okay, this is my job title, but let me help here. Let me explore here. And it's helping them, but it's also helping them build relationships within the companies. So typically we see companies, once they have at least one Kelley, they're like, we want more. And that's pervasive throughout all of Kelley, graduate, undergraduate, whatever. But it's So it's a nice thing for our students just to go in and just like, okay, I'm going to learn, I'm going to gain a lot here, but I'm also willing to help in whatever way I can.
Right. And all four of your schools, that there are other business schools where graduates have a reputation for being anything but humble. But presumably, you know, that sort of can-do attitude and sort of adapting to a situation. I mean, that's something that's invaluable, right, Rebecca, for recruiters?
I mean, that's what it seems to be. I know I am a Kelley MBA alum, and it helped me in my career, but but really that's what we hear a lot of from employers. I mean, they come out with all the education they need. They come out with all the soft skills that they need, but it's really that little extra of willingness just to say, okay, you need help here. I'm happy to do that. Or I know it has nothing to do with my job, but I'm willing to learn and throw me in and see what happens.
Right, and that appetite from recruiters, Brittany, is it something that has shifted? You know, there's always been the pipeline into consulting, financial services. Of course, there's you know a big tech industry, and there's Elon Musk that's shown up in Austin. What are you seeing at McCombs in terms of certain sectors? You know, whether they have this insatiable appetite for your MBA students?
Yes, so historically, year over year, we've seen continued interest from our students within financial services, consulting, as well as technology. And the same can be said for this past year's graduating class. We did notice that there was a little bit more of growth and interest within consulting specifically. And we largely attribute that to the job market, but also just to the talent of our MBAs. You know, when it comes to what we've been hearing from employers year over year, we have very strong ties with our employer and corporate ecosystem. And they share with us that employers are highlighting how these students can, again, come in, be complex problem solvers, be curious, but also be resilient when obstacles come up along the way. And these are just a couple of skills that I think are crucial in those core industries. I'll also add that because so many of our students come in into the program in their first year as explorers, they're willing to test out a new industry, a new function, to identify if that next step aligns with what they're skilled at and what they're passionate about. So I just really appreciate the fact that our students are so open-minded to what the market is revealing, but then also do a really great job showcasing their skill set so that whatever they decide to plant their feet in, they're bound to be successful.
Right. And so there's the class of 2022. Our viewers, both today and in the weeks and months that follow, Maureen, there are often 10, 15, 20,000 views of these panels that we record. So we'll think about that audience. At the earliest, they'll probably be in the Goizueta class of 2025. Mm-hmm. Should they be trying to second guess? I mean, we'd all have a crystal ball. But does it really matter in terms of, you know, the general skills of the MBA and then the ability to adapt through electives and, you know, whatever that job market might look like 3-4 years from now, you're going to be able to prepare them for it and hit the ground running?
Well, I think if there's any program I would put my money on, it would be the MBA. I know there's a lot of master's programs coming up, but the MBA, time after time, is the best return on investment for your money. We see students come into our MBA that are, what did Brittany call, explorers or career changers or accelerators, and they really do accelerate their career. Students get such a great return on their investment for the time and energy they put on their MBA, and they have a lasting network that they can use throughout all of their career transitions. So I really believe that this is a program. It's unique also in the sense that our employers are looking for students that have work experience. Most of our programs, everyone on this call, the average student has 5 or 6 years of work experience, and our employer partners are looking for that work experience. So students build with the skills, the technical skills they need, plus the leadership skills. So when they graduate, they're taking leadership positions within organizations. And they're looking for those soft skills. And that is really what the MBA gives you relative to other programs. So again, I think it is such a great investment. I would encourage anyone to take a look at the MBA if you're looking at either, you know, a master's program. It's such a great investment.
Right. And whether we're talking to the class of 2002 that emerged with the internet bubble, or 2010-11 with the financial crisis, for those Kenan-Flagler graduates, Kelley, or those in 3 years from now, is your deep-held belief that in any of those situations you're better off with an MBA from a top school like yours than without?
Yes, unqualifiedly, yes. And very simply because the world is changing so quickly, right? Think about the jobs that we're seeing existing now. They didn't exist 5 years ago. The things that are going to be the hot jobs in 10 years don't exist now. And having the ability and the foundational education and experience to really be within an ever-changing dynamic society, to be able to roll up your sleeves and pitch in like we all know our students will do, is invaluable. And I think that those are skills and experiences you get truly from an MBA program, again, from that holistic and comprehensive space. So having it, making the investment, pulling yourself out of the job market temporarily, to make this investment in yourself will pay dividends in the future. And you will get the skills that you need from any of our wonderful schools, and all of us will be there to help you do that. So consider the MBA and then go get one. But yeah, definitely with, not without.
Imagining, the first 2 years in Chapel Hill, but I'm sure again through all 4 of the schools, Rebecca, it's an ongoing relationship, because a Kelley graduate 4 or 5 years later is still in touch with you. Can they come back for advice or say, hey, now I've got this interview coming up and I wanted to run it by you?
Yep. Well, that's true. And we offer career services for life, which I think a lot of us do. And our alums use it. You're part of the Kelley family, and we call it the big K because there's like the MBA K, and then we have other master's programs and then the undergraduate. But the nice thing is if you're a Kelley, other Kelleys will reach out to you and you'll reach out to other Kelleys, and everybody's happy to talk to you. So, but yeah, it's our students reach out to us all the time with like, hey, like I mentioned earlier, I had somebody from 10 years ago reach out to me earlier today, and it was fun walking through him because he came from a very corporate background, very traditional, and after his MBA, and now he's looking at an UB's employee number 19 in a startup. And so it's like, what do I do? How do I do this? And so really, kind of helping him through that process, but and then they come back just to visit and say hi. And so really, be developing, it's that relationship that we develop with all of our students, but then it's also, they want to come back. They want to help on lots of different levels. Right.
You'd mentioned earlier, Brittany, that people fall in love with Austin. Certainly if they've tried Amy's ice cream, I can well understand it. The idea of, then perhaps first career steps that take place in and around the very dynamic Austin economy. With many international students, and no doubt among our viewers at CentreCourt, as they then think about, well, that might be for the first 3-4 years, H-1B visa, but this is also something that's going to serve them so well if they have a subsequent international transition, whether it's back home or to any other part of the world. It really will continue to support them through the rest of their career.
Absolutely. So similar to what Maureen had mentioned, we do have alumni career management services for life. We rolled it out 2 summers ago. And essentially alumni can get engaged with us through one-on-one coaching. In addition, we do quite a bit of programming and mentorship. One thing that I would love to highlight, though, is that our alumni not only partake in the alumni career management piece, but similar to the other ladies on this call, they're knocking at the door to identify how they can get plugged in other avenues. And so this past year alone, we ended up having one of our alumni from LinkedIn reach out and express interest in wanting to do some tailored programming for our first year MBAs as it relates to building your presence via LinkedIn. And his sessions were so well received that we're just grateful that our alumni want to give back. Specifically for our international students, because the job market is very challenging initially in finding employment within the US, a lot of the alumni want to stay connected and serve as mentors. Some have opted into being a part of our networking events so they can share their stories about how they got from, where they were in the program to where they are now. And it's just amazing how they've wanted to leave McCombs better than, what it was when they started, and how the giving never stops. So it's truly a special place.
Right, there must be so many individual stories. And Maureen, as you said earlier, it's not 930 students in Boston or 850 students in Philadelphia. It is that much more intimate community that you have. If you could choose one student story that perhaps illustrated this idea of where they'd come in at the program, perhaps on the first day, and that sense of imposter syndrome and everyone else is smarter than me and has better professional experience than I do. How you're also helping them with their self-confidence to find a calling, to that sense of purpose, and to really find that sort of positive space for the next steps. You must have actually countless examples. I don't know if there's just one.
Sure. I can remember a student who's now a very successful professional. So this was a few years ago, but I had a board that I listed the students that were still searching for internships, and he was the last person on my board. And so he was really stressed that he would be the one person in his class not to get an internship. I think we've had 100% internships for, I don't even know, 10 years, 20 years. And he did get an internship at Adobe and was wildly successful, and he received an offer. But he decided that he learned a lot during the summer about himself and what he wanted out of his next role. And he ended up re-recruiting for consulting, which originally was his first choice. And he landed a job with one of the large MBB firms. So he was so excited, and just the transition and the transformation he made throughout that process, thinking that he was the last person to get a job, and then had one of the most, highly coveted jobs amongst our students, was really great. And it's so funny. He comes back all the time and says to me, "Oh, Maureen, I remember when I was on your board." I was like, look at you now. So I'm sure everyone on this call has some stories like that. It's really great to see. It's amazing to see the transformation that students go throughout their time here, with taking their courses and getting to know their professors, and just the growth is amazing. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're still doing this. This isn't the easiest job all of the time, but just seeing the progress that students make and seeing them as alumni coming back, it gives me a lot of faith in humanity in the world. So it's great to see those transformations.
Yeah, just listening to you, hair standing up on the back of my neck. I mean, presumably, I don't know, Kelley, if you also have a board in your office, but when you do follow these stories on LinkedIn, or they come by on campus, and then there are kids or whatever, next life stages. I mean, the investment that you've made in them. Do you have? It must feel like a family almost. What is it that you love about your work so much?
Gosh, I do feel that way. And it's fun, actually. I was working with a student in one of our other MBA programs recently, and I realized that he went to school with someone I coached 10 years ago at a different school. And it was like, how do I can still pull all the details of that person's life and experience from the file of facts in my head. And I think that we're probably all in a similar situation, right? Where we remember these stories because they really just have such an impact on us. And for me, it is about, being the person that I needed when I was a younger professional. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I went to law school, which is not a great idea if you don't know what you want to be. If you know you want to be a lawyer, that's great. So thinking about how can I help folks sort of push pause, be planful, be thoughtful, and find the thing that's going to work for them and not for anybody else, right? Their plan has to work for them. The strategies have to work for them, and anything that I can do or that my team can do to really influence that is oftentimes the sort of intrinsic motivation that we seek when we're doing this work. I think, Carolina and Kenan-Flagler in particular make it really easy to do that because, Tar Heels, you're a Tar Heel once, you're a Tar Heel for life. Tar Heels take care of Tar Heels, and there really is just this culture of the individual and the story and how we come together as a community. And all of those things sort of impact my story and why I love doing this.
It must be very powerful, Rebecca. Somebody talks about, I'm looking for this specific company, I want this job title. And are you sort of then holding up a mirror and saying, but who do you want to be as a person? I mean, there must be great depth of reflection in the work that you do.
There is. And building off of everything Kelley just said, I mean, students sometimes come in and say, I want to go this path. And it's like, okay, let's talk about that. You can do that. But sometimes along the way, they realize that's not where they want to be, or maybe they test it out in that internship and realize that doesn't really fit them and they really need to be going a different way. So really helping students figure out what that is. And even though they may push back a little bit and not necessarily want to go on that developmental journey with you, they do find out the value of it along the way. And it's fun to see alum comes back and like, yeah, I remember when you made me do this or you pushed me on this, and how much it impacted them and changed them and really got them to be successful in the way that they were. So it's very rewarding, but sometimes it's challenging. Sometimes you're like, okay, I don't think this person's listening. And then you find out later on that they actually really listened and they really valued it. It's just, you didn't know that till 2 years later.
Yeah, it's very often your colleagues on the previous panel that are on the road, attending MBA fairs. And yet, I think, one of the magic of CentreCourt is having your voices, your insight, the experience that you've had, and for potential applicants to business school to really get the sense of that and the level of investment. Perhaps, Brittany, just a final question. As any individual is thinking about this next step and embarking on the business school journey, just advice that you would have for them to take that next step.
One of the analogies we like to use often is that the MBA experience is like a test kitchen, and there's going to be so many different experiences you can take advantage of to begin to gain that clarity around what it is you may want to do. So my specific advice would be get involved, immerse yourself in different student organizations, learn from your peers, learn from our alumni, prioritize getting to know faculty and staff and identifying which academic courses will help you grow your skill set so that you're ready for the future of work. But really make the most of the MBA and know that you have the power to make your MBA experience whatever you want it to be. And start early.
Right. Well, as we look at the current job market, and I know that the Wall Street Journal was commenting on this last week, but I think all of you sort of capture just the level of commitment, support, and as any of our viewers are thinking about, is now the right time? Number one, you're investing in yourselves, and that's always the best place to start. And I think with this sort of guidance and expertise by your side and the alumni networks of your 4 schools, where could you go wrong? So a very heartfelt thank you, Maureen, Rebecca, Kelley, and Brittany. I think some of your colleagues in admissions, they have their deadlines today or on Monday, so keep them supplied with good, strong coffee. And then as you're working with your students for next summer's internships, as you said earlier, it can never start early enough. But truly, thank you, all 4 of you, for such a bright, thoughtful, and very optimistic session together. It was an absolute pleasure.